Hey y'all, how's it going? And welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jasmine. I am a writer and I also love to read books and watch movies based off of books. And on Wednesdays, we talk about all things writing. And specifically this week, I am giving you an update on some of my writing goals and some of my writing projects. I am currently in my bedroom right now because that is literally the only place that the audio doesn't get screwed up. I'm not exactly sure what is happening with my audio, but recently when I have been inside my office specifically, anytime that I film myself, the audio is basically unusable because there's this very loud radio static that's in the back, and I'm not exactly sure why that's happening, so I am trying to limit the places that I am filming right now away from my office until I can figure out where that noise is coming from. Until then, you're probably gonna be hanging out in my room a lot, so there's that. The front room is also fine, but the vent is like obnoxiously loud. So if we want a quiet space, we're gonna be in here. So last month was all first draft writing. And this month, I have a completely different project that I am working on. For the past several years, since I have been on AuthorTube, I have been talking quite a bit about a trilogy, a science fiction trilogy that I have been working on. I have technically finished all 3 books. All of them are in first draft form, except for the first novel. So the first novel I have gone through once and done major line edits on it. And I'm gonna do line edits again this time. So I am going to be planning on that being my project for the next month or 2 until I can let Sleepless Wonder just marinate. And because of that, my word count is probably going to look a lot different than it did the month previous. So I think I'm gonna bump up my goal because obviously with editing, if you're just moving around a few words, I wouldn't consider me only writing like 9 words specifically for the things that I have edited or decided to take out. I am basically treating this like anything that was 100% good to go and needed no edits on it. Those words are still included in my word count. So the word count is probably gonna look a lot higher than it generally does. Is that skewing results? I don't think so. I wrote those words before. Like, I'm gonna count them again by going over them. What I am trying to avoid is making sure that I am not discouraging myself by only writing the words that I edit into my log, because that way it's going to be like, you wrote 30 words today if I didn't hardly have any edits, and I don't think that that's really fair. The results might be a little skewed, but this is for me. This is my sheet. So today is February 3rd, and I have been able to keep up the past 2 days with editing. And I think that this is going to be a lot more of a relaxed situation for me too. I understand that editing is harder in some way, but there's a lot less grunt work and it's more of like polishing. And don't get me wrong, polishing is still a lot of work, especially if there is a section that really needs to be polished. But ultimately, it's not every single section at this point because I've already gone through it once. Do you guys want to see the book that I made? Okay, by the way, this is not the official cover at all. This was just something that I slapped together on Canva to like make it look good. But virtually what I did is I just got a like not for sale copy through Amazon, which I would highly recommend. And I basically just like read everywhere. Like, right now, I am still in chapter 1, but chapter 1 is probably one of the most refined chapters in the book. Obviously, I've been over it a lot. So I honestly think that I'll be able to finish chapter 1 completely, like no more edits rather than sending it to a proofreader or eventually having a dev editor. I really think that I have just ripped that first chapter apart as much as I can. I think that my main goal right now is making sure that the first 3 chapters are like near perfect, because once I have those 3 chapters near perfect, it's gonna be a lot easier to connect everything else. So that's going to be my main goal right now. And I don't really have a timeline of when I want to get that done. Because if I am being honest with myself, as much as I love this trilogy, I don't know if I want it to be the first thing that I completely publish. Maybe I would publish the first book with like a couple other books I would want to publish at the same time, but I don't want to just right off the gate start with this, because this is like my baby child. This is my passion project right here. And all of the books that I have written, I love. I have never really quite stuck with a story like this one. So I want to make sure that for this one, I want to do it right. And I know I've been rambling on a lot. So let's just continue on with the vlog and get writing. Hi, buddy. You decided to be a part of the vlog. You're such a handsome boy. Oh, let's get you focused though. Let's get you focused. I know, I'm a bad dog mom. Putting a camera in your face. I have gotten some really good headway on chapter 1, but I've run into a few loose ends that I feel like really need to be fixed. So chapter 1 is definitely going to take a lot longer than I originally thought it would. For example, there were quite a few lines of dialogue that I looked back on and I just felt like they were cheesy and normal people just like literally wouldn't say those lines. So I was able to adjust about 3 lines yesterday, which is good, but obviously it took my word count way down. But I've decided that it's better to have a smaller word count rather than breaking my streak. I only wrote 70 words yesterday. However, I was able to still keep up my streak, and we're on a 10-day streak, folks. Going on 11. 10 days was yesterday. I was really struggling with those 3 lines of dialogue that I just felt like were really cheesy, and I also didn't know if it was realistic for her to continuously be arrogant. So I was in between, do I make her still arrogant, or do I have her plead just a little bit? I was thinking that I would do one or the other, but then I decided to do both because I realized that there's a joke that is referenced later on in the next chapter to what she says in that line. So I kept it, but I added some more realistic elements to it. The last thing that I'm trying to figure out, which actually is going to take me a bit of research, is what type of martial arts form she does. Originally, when I wrote the story, I didn't know anything about martial art, and I basically just wrote down she is a black belt in karate, and I realized all of the fighting styles that she's doing, it would not be realistic for her to only have karate because she mainly uses kicks, and she does a lot of like acrobatics, and I feel like karate is more like punching. She can do that, but that's not her go-to. So tonight, we're going to be studying martial arts. Are we gonna have fun studying martial arts today, buddy? Well, you're not gonna study martial arts. I am, though. You just want pets. And there he melts. I will catch up with you guys after those updates. My camera died, as it always does. But I just finished some research on different types of fighting styles that I could potentially give my main character. And I thought that throughout this time, I would be able to land on something or make some sort of decisions. And now I just have more questions. Who knew that there was such a rabbit hole that I could go down with martial arts? So basically this is what I have so far. Here are my questions. When I was looking at the different fighting styles, I was very on the fence about if I wanted her to do judo or jujitsu. I thought about taekwondo for a second, but then watching the videos of people actually doing taekwondo, it just wasn't exactly what I imagined in my mind of how she would specifically fight. So I looked into jujitsu, only to find out that there are at least 3 different types of jujitsus. There could be more. I could just have only found 3 of them. So there's Brazilian jiu-jitsu, something called Gracie jiu-jitsu, or Japanese jiu-jitsu. And I don't know what the difference between the 3 of them is. Also, I was doing more research on different types of just like fighting styles overall, because later on in the series, she learns another fighting style. And originally I was going to have her learn kickboxing, but then I learned that kickboxing is not necessarily spectacular for self-defense. It teaches you some really, really great basics from what I understand, which is kind of funny because I have been super into kickboxing. Like, I've never done it, but I've always wanted to do it. But from my findings, I saw that Muay Thai or wrestling would actually be somewhat better than even jiu-jitsu in some cases. But I'm not exactly sure what type of martial arts Muay Thai teaches, what the style is. But also MMA fighting was ranked really, really high. And I don't really know what the difference between boxing and MMA fighting is, which sounds very dumb of me to say, but once again, I am entering a new world of a skill that I have no idea how to do it. So I'm probably going to be saying a lot of stupid things and asking a lot of stupid questions about it. So I just have more questions. But I guess that's kind of the point of learning, right? You learn about something and then you're like, wait, well, what about this? What about this? So I'm glad that I did it. I don't know what to do now. I don't know what to do with the information I have now. But I do think that I have a decent line that I can put in there just for a moment. I think I am going to have her do jujitsu. I'm not going to specify what kind of jujitsu she does yet because I'm still deciding. But at least she's not just doing karate anymore. Well, now I gotta look up all the different belts for jujitsu. Hang on. All right, I'm gonna try and decide what belt she is. And I'll get back to you from then. Hi everyone! Contrary to how it looks, with me getting my skincare routine done, it is in fact not early in the morning. It is 4:30 p.m. I want it to look a little, wanted to look a little bit better this evening. Let's take the glasses off. I cannot believe how long I went without glasses, because now whenever I take them off, I'm like, oh my gosh, I couldn't see the whole time. I didn't know. I wanted to look a little bit better for all of the reviews that I am doing. A couple of days ago, I finished the third of the way through portion for The Hate U Give, and I'm pretty dang close to halfway. So I have a feeling that I could do both of those updates today. As far as my writing updates go, I have been deep in the trenches of research. I was able to do a lot of research to the point where I feel like I hit a rabbit hole that I had no idea that I would ever go down. So obviously it's a lot of work on my science fiction trilogy. And basically what I realized is I really need to commit on how this epidemic works. I feel like a science fiction novel does need some concrete scientific realism in order to work, while simultaneously understanding that this is fiction and there are certain things that scientifically could happen, but the likelihood is like so small. I feel like a good example of something that is based on a lot of real science, but is obviously not necessarily likely, is The Last of Us. Every way of how the bacteria works and the way that it is spread is very accurate to how mushrooms and spores of that kind get contaminated. And I think that adds in a little bit of spookiness, because it's almost like oh, what if this happens? What if this could happen? But if you make the entirety of it fiction, then obviously it's not going to resonate with people, because they're like, okay, this is fake, this literally wouldn't happen. And then you put in like hella fake science all the time. I'm sure that there are plenty of examples where science fiction is not done very well, and I understand that science fiction in general is just a very hard genre to sell people on. It's a very easy thriller, but overall, if people are not interested in much of a science fiction situation versus people who do really care about science and are frustrated that not a lot of it is very accurate or even like realistic in any sort of way to give some sort of nuance of a what if, it's a hard sell. But I feel like when it's done right, it is a slam dunk. I feel like science fiction also had its time where all of the teens were super interested in it. I know that I was definitely a part of that Renaissance period, whether it be like a diplomatic society or just some sort of illness that's going around. That was very, very big when I was a teenager. For context, I graduated in 15. That makes me sound so old. That was 9 years ago. Oh my gosh. Let's not have a mid-20s crisis right now. I'm past my mid-20s. I'm past that. So yesterday, just so that I don't get too terribly sidetracked, I learned so much about so many different sciences, and I can't tell you all of the sciences that I went over, otherwise that would give away a huge plot point of the book. So, not gonna do that. But what I will say is I jumped around to like 3 different types of science topics that could connect to what the epidemic is based on, and I got to like very scientific research papers online. And I looked at my husband, we were just like sitting in bed while I was doing this research, and I'm like, how did I get here? How did I get here? I had only been doing this for like an hour. And I was really proud of myself because I feel like I did do research previously to see if it was possible, right? But I didn't do research on really the how or the why. And I also developed some more concepts of how it all happened and came to be. So as far as counting my words goes for that research portion, basically what I decided to do was to mark it as a you did do writing, but I didn't write any words. Because I feel like research is a huge portion of editing, right? So you can't really get very far with editing if you aren't going to do some research on certain topics. And no matter what genre of book you do, you always need to do some sort of research in some capacity, whether it be about towns or cars or like something so rudimentary that maybe like some people know commonly but you don't. Also, don't make fun of me for the way I'm putting on my cover up. I tried to use a beauty blender. I was so excited. I bought like a whole kit of them, and half of this just ended up on the beauty blender, so I felt like I didn't get as good of coverage as I do when I just like plop it on and use my fingers. Might be unsanitary, totally. I decided to count that as one of my main ways that I did my editing that day. So 0 words, because obviously I didn't necessarily put anything to the manuscript itself that could be counted. However, I did make huge headways on some plot points, and I don't even think I'm done yet. Something else that I wanted to mention about the editing process so far, I'm currently on chapter 2, and I decided to test something out. In the first chapter, what I basically did as far as my editing process goes is I went very strictly chronologically line by line, and because of that, I did run into more problems and issues, but I also feel like it took me a while to get to certain parts that I already knew were fine and complete. So I tested out another way to do edits. Instead of going through everything chronologically line by line, I would specifically look for all the things that didn't have notes on it previously in my physical copy, and then I would just mark that as complete. What I realized in the second chapter was I did complete more of it sooner, but because I left all of the hard parts for last, it definitely kind of piled on. I was able to get some of the lines situated, which wasn't too bad. A lot of my edits right now are basically just making sure there are no plot holes, the world building makes sense, and getting rid of any dialogue that is cheesy or getting rid of descriptions that were lazy. That's basically what I am doing right now. Ow. I am very proud of what I've done so far with the edits. I'm really happy about how the story is going, and I feel like I am falling back in love with my characters and the way that I created them, but I feel like they're being given an even better personality than what I was originally thinking they would have, which is always so fun to see. I love character development so much. I am realizing that as we get to the middle of the month, I certainly had my expectations way too high as far as finishing the third and final draft of this book in 2 months, because I am almost approaching week 2 and I'm on chapter 2. So I have some decisions to make as far as what do I want to do first. Do I want to finish up editing the third draft of my first book in my trilogy, or do I want to jump back in to the single science fiction story that I just finished? I'm still trying to get used to how vlogs work, honestly. It feels so weird, like just continuing on with my normal life as well as talking about writing stuff. I feel like I need to very distinctly like sit down, get in a good headspace to talk about writing, but it was kind of nice, kind of therapeutic. No one's here, but I'm talking to all of you guys through the computer. It's a little sad, but it's also kind of nice. There's no pressure for anybody to respond until I upload the video, and I can edit it however I want. Basic synopsis. I did a lot of research. The research went really well, and even though I didn't write a lot of words, I still considered it a very successful writing day. And I've been keeping up with my streak pretty well. There was one day where I wasn't able to keep up with my streak, but honestly, I was okay with it. So the longest streak that I have had so far is 13 days. It's pretty freaking rad. I don't remember the last time that I wrote for that many days straight. And I think that it was a good lesson to be not necessarily patient with myself, but be realistic with myself. The day that I wasn't able to write, I worked 2 hours past when I was supposed to get off of work, and then I immediately had a D&D session that I was DMing. So obviously, was not gonna work. Was not realistic, would not have been healthy if I gave myself a really hard time that I didn't write that day. So, balance. It's a good thing. Okay, I've rambled on enough. I'm gonna clean up my mess and go bake a cake.